Why? Why? The long-awaited Berserk chapter is finally here, and to be quite honest with you, of the 4 new chapters of Berserk that we have gotten from Studio Gaga, I think this one felt the most Berserk so far, if you know what I mean. It felt the most like Kentaro Miura was making this chapter. That may be because there was a lot less action and a lot more dialogue in this chapter. In fact, there were no spread panels, which sort of means that the chapter feels slower because the spread panels take up 2 pages, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, which is why the 3 other chapters felt extremely short because of all the spread panels that it did have. However, this chapter did not have any spread panels, making it feel a lot longer, and besides, there was a lot more dialogue in this chapter. And because there was a lot more dialogue, I feel like it did make it feel like Berserk a lot more, because the other 3 chapters again were completely just action, emotion, and reaction, especially from Guts. Guts did not speak a single word pretty much in the last 3 chapters, and he didn't really say anything in this chapter either now that I think about it. The dialogue seemed to come from a lot more of the side characters like Serpico, Isidro, and the boss man himself, Rod D. Eric, but things in terms of action kind of ease up, and I know it's crazy that I'm saying they're easing up when this is like the most intense chapter of the 3 or of the 4, but I mean in terms of action it's sort of easing up because we're not fighting Griffith right now, we're fighting Demon. Not like literally we're fighting demons. This chapter was absolutely gut-wrenching, heartbreaking. It was terribly sad. I can't even explain, man. Of all the things to happen, of all the struggle Guts has endured to get to this point, you're telling me this is what he gets? Of all the things that could happen, this is what Guts gets. This is his reward for struggling. I did not think Guts was going to have to experience something like this again. I didn't think he was going to have to chase Casca again, but here he is. Once again, Berserk proves us wrong and shows us that Guts is going to have to continue struggling whilst Griffith continues being God. So now Casca has been taken from Guts by Griffith, and like, what could go more wrong than that? It is going to be so interesting to see Guts' reaction and Guts' development as a character from here on out, especially because Guts isn't like the old character that he is. He isn't constantly consumed by rage whenever something like this happens, and he doesn't run away from the sorrow by covering it up with rage, as we learned in Cracks in the Blade. Now that he's more in control of his emotions, how is he going to react to this situation? There's a possibility that he reacts and he's extremely sad and quite honestly depressed in this situation. I can kind of see that. That would be a great turning point for his character because we've never seen Guts in that way. But with something like the Beast of Darkness constantly consuming Guts, I don't think that's going to happen. And I think the Beast of Darkness now is especially going to be strong. Because if you think about it, the Beast of Darkness was the one that constantly convinced Guts to go after Griffith. And Guts never really fully went after Griffith. So what do you think the Berserker Armor or the Beast of Darkness is going to push Guts to do now? It's going to say something like, see what happened when you didn't pursue Griffith? You ended up losing her anyways, which is why you should have consumed her and become more like Griffith and gone after Griffith in the first place. I can literally picture that conversation in my head right now, and it might honestly happen in the next few chapters, especially because we haven't seen anything in terms of dialogue from Guts, and seeing this kind of deep dialogue with him for the first time in quite a while would be excellent for his character. That's probably what I'm most excited about though. It's just Guts' character. I cannot wait to see where they go with him. It's going to be a completely new chapter of Guts. Literally, we're going to see so many new things from this character. Probably we're going to see some emotions from Guts that we haven't seen from him before, like the sadness he showed in this chapter, which just made it so, oh my god, man. Well, now it seems like the final arc is slowly starting to take shape as Fantasia is coming to an end, and it looks like the final arc is yet again going to be Guts trying to get Casca back from Griffith. However the final arc ends, Guts and Casca somehow have to end up living together, or Berserk is literally going to be the most tragic story that ever lived. Again, if you saw my God Theory video, which if you haven't, I highly recommend you check it out because it's like probably my favorite video I've ever made. But in that video I talked about Griffith and how his downfall would come. I still do believe in that theory because this chapter didn't really give us anything that would prove it otherwise, and I still do think that Griffith is going to have a major downfall because he cannot just continue doing this stuff, continue causing Guts the suffering that he's causing him. And eventually, Griffith is going to fall as a result of his own actions and as a result of who he is himself and the things that he's done in the past. The interesting thing is, what is Griffith trying to do with Casca in this situation? I understand that Casca is somewhat like Griffith's mother because Griffith's body is the Moonlight Boy's body. That's the only thing I can use to justify Griffith taking Casca at this point, but who even knows? Griffith could have a completely different plan with Casca. Something that I did see that was a lot different from the other 3 chapters, not so much from the last chapter, but from the 2 before it. The art style looked a lot different, especially with Guts. For the other characters, the art style looked completely fine, especially for Skull Knight, which, oh my god, I'm talking about Skull Knight later, but hold on. Roderick looked excellent in terms of the artwork. He looked a lot like Miura's depiction of him. It's just Guts in the certain panels that did not look entirely like Guts. And that's completely okay with me because, again, this is not Kentaro Miura, and Kentaro Miura is a one-of-a-kind man, one-of-a-kind artist. His art can quite literally not be replicated, so it's completely fine with me. I just thought I'd point it out here. I still do think the way they depicted the certain moments and the emotions that Guts and the other characters felt was excellent. I honestly think Studio Gaga, for doing monthly chapters, is doing absolutely amazing, and I could not be more happy with what they're doing with the art. Okay, let's talk about Skull Knight. Skull Knight is here, bro. He is here. I think it was like 2 chapters ago, I was like, Skull Knight has to show up. I wanted him to show up in 367, but he didn't show up. He is late as hell, bro. Like, I feel like that fight with Griffith lasted a good like 10 minutes. Bro, I swear Skull Knight could have just hopped in here from like wherever he was before. He was still on the island, right? Especially with Zod being here. We could have had another Zod Skull Knight interaction. Just a dialogue interaction would have been really cool, but we didn't get either a dialogue interaction or a physical interaction, which is fine because we did get the Skull Knight showing up at least. And yes, he's extremely late to the party. Skull Knight is like that one dude who's always late to the conversations in the group chat. But when he does show up finally, he says some very interesting words of dialogue that I don't quite understand, but I have some ideas as to what he's really trying to say. He says, "Tonight a beam of blinding light pierced this land. That flash wedged open fissures which act as passages all over." I feel like the beam of blinding light might have been Griffith because he's kind of portrayed as that beam of blinding light. So he pierces this island, and that's what opened up these fissures, and that's what caused these weird demon shadow things to come onto the island and to consume people alive. And we see them consuming someone alive and absolutely burning them. And as Skull Knight says right here, it's as if these little shadow things are the lords of this island because they're what caused this island to remain the way it is and to remain stable as an island. So they kind of need to be on this island. They simply came out because Griffith opened the fissures in the land. So that begs the question, did Griffith open the fissures on purpose so that the people on Elfhelm could all die, or did he simply do it on accident just because, I mean, I don't know, it's an accident, right? Also, Isidro character development, we always take that. He's growing into the new Guts. I'm playing. No one's ever gonna touch Guts, obviously. The Roderick moment was really cool, but I'm quite surprised myself as to how crazy those shadow things can actually be. Bro, I don't even think Ramsay Bolton could make a dude look like this. Okay, you knew this was coming. This is the moment of the chapter that made the chapter. That made it probably the best out of the 4. One of the best in Fantasia, quite honestly. And it's Guts as he sees Griffith and Casca flying away on top of Zod, and just the helpless emotion Guts feels in this situation. He doesn't get consumed by the Berserker armor, none of that. It's just completely sorrow. And this is such, I already mentioned this, but this is such a great development for Guts because finally he can engage himself in the sorrow and the suffering. He doesn't run away from it like he did in the past with the Berserker armor, and he doesn't rely on his anger to keep him going and to keep him alive. He truly has to engage himself in the suffering and feel sorrow, and through that experience he's going to learn so much and grow only more as a character. Absolutely heartbreaking moment here. Such a beautifully drawn panel as well. It really did look like Miura. It really did. This panel right here and the panel where Guts is reaching out with his arm. Truly, that helpless feeling in Guts' eyes just makes me extremely sad. Now at the end here, this weird tree thing shows up, and I don't really know what this tree is, but the first thing I had in my mind was that it's somehow attached to the great tree in Falconia that allowed Griffith to travel anywhere in the world. That was the main idea I had, which would entail that Griffith wants to come back to Elfhelm to do something, which I don't know what he would want to do on Elfhelm. Maybe there's some kind of special special thing on it. Maybe he needs to take some power, or needs to, I don't even know. Why would Griffith want to come back to this island? But that tree does leave some good mystery off at the end of the chapter, and Berserk has done this for the last few chapters. For a long time actually, Berserk has done this where it leaves us off on a crazy cliffhanger, and it does that right here with this tree at the end, leaving us with the question, what and why is this tree here? Last thing I want to address before I end the video is Shirka and Farnese did not show up at all in this chapter, which begs the question, where are they and are they okay? And we saw this panel here with Roderick questioning if Farnese was safe, but I do think they're going to be safe. They are pretty much main characters right now. I'm just really curious to see where they are and what they're doing, if they're even conscious, and if the shadow things can attack them. I think if anyone is to stop these shadow things, it would be Shirka, which is probably what we're going to see in the next chapter, but that is for next chapter. The next chapter comes out September the 9th, which if it does follow the same schedule as all these other chapters, it will not actually be on September 9th, but it will be 2 days early on September the 7th, which would be amazing, because 2 days early for Berserk chapter, we always take those. We have 2 more chapters now until Fantasia ends, and we go into the final arc of Berserk. This chapter truly broke my heart, but it was phenomenal. As always, let me know your thoughts on the chapter in the comments. I'm still recovering. It really did hurt. But that is it for me. I hope you did enjoy the video. I hope you did enjoy the chapter, which I'm sure you either did or didn't. That's it for me. Peace.